So this is part 2 of 6, Calgary to Balzac, Costco, northbound on Metis Trail, and then afterwards I'll be heading up to Airdrie for a coffee. So, right now I'm doing a 60 kilometer an hour, as you can see on the speedometer. Most of the road here on Metis Trail heading north from Country Hills Blvd is 60 to 70 kilometers an hour. So we're just going to cross over the railway tracks. This crossing isn't that bad actually on the Navi, but you got to watch out. There's lots of potholes in this road. So generally I have to stick to the center of the road to avoid a lot of these potholes and whatnot. So the one thing that's really interesting about the Navi is the amount of maintenance that you're required to do, which is almost nothing. I'm looking at the owner's manual, the scheduled maintenance, and actually I decided to do the oil change at 600 kilometers instead of 1,000 kilometers because the Navi was sitting in a warehouse, in the dealer's warehouse, for probably about 3 to 4 years, and so I wanted to get the oil changed out sooner and do the valve. So I wanted to see what was all involved with taking the bike apart, and so the things that need to be done at the 1000 tune-up is do the valves, do the valve adjustments, which is 0.16 millimeters or something, and that's for the intake and the exhaust, which is weird because usually the exhaust ones have a much bigger gap. Then check the idle speed. Well, I've been doing that all along because it had a tank of gas in there. It had been sitting for a few years and it didn't want to idle very much. So I've had to keep readjusting the idle so that it idles properly with the choke on and doesn't die. And then check the brake system, the brake lock operation, which is a parking brake. Check for loose bolts and fasteners, and check for steering head bearings, which usually don't have to be done unless you start having slop in the steering head bearings. So the normal tune-up is 1,000 kilometers and then every 4,000 after that. But like I said, I'm doing it early. I wanted to find out what was all involved with it. And this particular trip up to Costco is going to come in handy with that storage box on the Navi because I'll be using that. Up this far, we're almost getting to Balzac now. 70 kilometers an hour speed limit. I'm doing 60 because there's nobody else on the road, and I like running the bike at 60 kilometers an hour. Sometimes even down to 50, as long as nobody's around, no big deal. And yeah, the tune-up on the Navi was amazingly simple to get at compared to my CBR 125. On the CBR 125, I've got to take off the lower cowling. I've got to take off the cowling around the engine, the dash, the engine gauges. I got to take off the mid cowling, which is a real piece of work to get apart. I've got to take off the rear seat. I've got to take off the front seat. I've got to unbolt the cover over the gas tank, remove the bolts on the gas tank, tip it back, and have something tied onto the gas tank to keep it tilted up so I can actually get in there and do the intake valve on it. And then I have to really squeeze in the front to get at the exhaust valve. And I mean, there is just no room to work on it. The Navi is so much easier. 3 bolts to take off the storage box in front, 3 screws to unscrew the front panel over the cylinder head, and you're there. Then you just got to remove a couple of hoses that are held on by a clip and just slide them off and unbolt the cylinder head. There's 2 bolts there, and then pull the top of the valve cover off and you're right there. Then you take off the shroud around the fan on the right side of the engine because you need to turn the fan. It's got alignment marks on it for top dead center. And once you're top dead center, then you can start setting the valves. And true fashion, true scenario, I guess, for doing valve adjustments, at least in the last month I've done 2 on different bikes. And the intake valves were always loose and the exhaust valve was always tight. The main thing to remember is leave the exhaust valve a little bit more loose, because it heats up and and it expands a lot more than the intake valve does. So that's where you usually run into burned valves, when the exhaust valve doesn't stay closed long enough. So here we are. We're going to turn into Costco here now. And this time of the day, Costco is probably going to have quite a lineup on it. So we'll get over in the left lane here and see how long of a wait we actually got to get into the gas station here. Now, Costco gas is generally cheapest one near me for getting fuel, but I have one just down the street that I go to for filling up my motorbikes most of the time, because it's only about a mile away, and I waste a lot less gas getting there and coming back. More convenient than coming all the way out here to Costco. But looks like I'm going to have a wait to get into the gas pumps. Mind you, when I do get in there, I'm going to be in and out in a couple of minutes, while everybody else is sitting there for 5 or 10 minutes filling their gas hog cars and vans and all that stuff. But yeah, the Navi is not going to take much gas at all. So just to jump ahead, so on this run here, I'm only gonna need 2.35 liters of gas. I'm down to the last liter of gas that's in the bike, and right now I'm kind of guessing I'm going to be getting around maybe 23 kilometers a liter, something like that. It'll probably be double that by the time I get my calculations all done. Right now for today, the gas is 1.47 per liter, and so this fill up's only going to cost me $3.48. Ah, beat that. Everybody else is putting in what, 60, 80, 100 liters. It's costing them a huge amount of money. And the fun thing about the Navi is, if you got to sit for a long time and waiting to get in for the gas, just turn the engine off and just walk it ahead. I mean, it's a light bike. You can just sit on it and walk ahead and get up to the pumps there. I don't usually like leaving a motorcycle, especially an air-cooled motorcycle, idling a long time in the heat. But today it's fairly cool. I mean, it's spring after all. And yeah, a week later we're going to get 2 or 3 inches of snow again. So that was today. We got quite a bit of snow last night. It's all melted again. It doesn't last long in Calgary once that sun comes out and it starts all melting. So it's quite the thing. Now I think on this last run here, I averaged what was it, 110 miles per gallon. Maybe I should go and actually pull up that sheet. So as we see on this spreadsheet here, on April 20, I paid $3.46 for gas. Went from 511 kilometers to 610, so 98.7 kilometers, which is 61 miles. I used 2.35 liters, which is about half a gallon, and my mile per gallon is 118.2, and the average at the top of the spreadsheet there is 107.2 overall. And I have another gas refueling coming up later, of course, which will be, I think it's 110 for the next one. And I'm paying their 147 a gallon. So can you beat that? 98 kilometers, almost 100 kilometers, which is about 60 miles. And yeah, quite impressive on the Navi. Wow, that's amazing. 118.2 miles per gallon. If I stick around 60 to 70, even say 50 to 70 kilometers an hour, I can get really good gas mileage on this. If I'm running 80 or trying to do that, I haven't really run 80 kilometers an hour for very long on the Navi because, after all, I'm still kind of breaking it in. And although I did the tune-up a little bit earlier, mostly to get the old oil out of it that's probably been sitting in there for a few years, and basically make sure everything's nice and tight. So that's the end of this video, and the next section will be going from Costco in Balzac to Starbucks in Airdrie, and I'll be continuing along Metis Trail northbound and continuing right up into Airdrie onto the back roads. So at no time did I ever end up on a road where I had to do 80 kilometers an hour, which is maximum speed on the Navi. So I'm learning all of the slower roads getting around Calgary, using the Navi to get there, and I'm having a lot of fun doing that as well. So we'll catch you in part 3.